I'm not one to express much respect for video game publishers, but there is one publisher that has, at least in terms of its output, earned some praise from me this year, and that publisher is Focus Home Interactive. Publishing solid mid-tier games free of AAA excess and greed, games like Greedfall, ironic name there, A Plague Tale, and the recently released Surge 2, Focus has been giving us the kind of experiences that so-called AAA mainstream publishers are no longer interested in providing to a relatively hungry market. Focus also put out the most strangely compelling game I've played this year, possibly the worst game I've ever liked, The Sinking City. Unfortunately, the Sinking City's developer, Frogwares, is seeing its games disappear off of storefronts, and Focus Home Interactive is to blame. The problem stems from the fact that Frogwares' publishing and distribution agreement with Focus has expired, but Focus is not giving the title IDs back to Frogwares to allow them to continue selling the game. This all stems from a new policy that Focus claims it has. Focus has put in place a policy in accordance with which they will not transfer any title, the content ID or title ID, belonging to any developer which has removed all of their games from the Focus catalogue. It all looks very much like a case of Focus Home Interactive saying, if we can't have it, nobody can. In a statement, Frogwares said, "We are Frogwares, the developer of the Sherlock Holmes video games and The Sinking City. We make detective games because it's our passion and because it allows us to live off it. But today that is under threat. Some of our games are being removed from Sony's and Microsoft storefronts and even maybe from Steam. This list includes our titles like Sherlock Holmes, Crimes and Punishments, The Testament of Sherlock Holmes vs. Jack the Ripper, and Mag Runner Dark Pulse. Why? Because Focus Home Interactive, the licensee or publisher that was in charge of commercializing these games on these platforms, refuses to transfer the title IDs to us, the creators and IP owners of those titles, even though our publishing and distribution agreement has ended." They said agreement twice, not me. They also say, as it stands right now, the only game left is Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishment, which only has until September 29th. It is possible that it will be taken down at this date or earlier if nothing is done. The players will no longer be able to buy and play the game. We will also lose all our wish lists on those store pages. As the creators and IP owners of all these games, we have no control and no say in this. The decision of Focus Home left us voiceless. We have always been an independent studio. We worked with many licensees on the grounds of a mutual interests and benefits, but it's the first time in 20 years we have encountered such a situation. We are losing all revenue attached to these games, some an unknown period of time, and for other games forever. This new policy from Focus Home towards former contracted developers will land a serious blow to our studio, threatening our future games and the people who develop them. Right now we are in a tough situation. We are preparing ourselves for a significant loss. To those parties that can help us and have influence over the situation, feel free to contact us. Archival in the video game industry is always a hot button issue because publishers have the power to just remove games, and licensing agreements expire all the time, new agreements aren't always made, and some games just disappear. Only recently, the critically acclaimed DuckTales Remastered was pulled from digital stores, because that's just what happens with Disney games. It's telling that when Disney announced that there's going to be a remaster of the Lion King and Aladdin games from the 90s, my first thought was, yeah, how long are those going to be on sale for? But this situation with Frogwares and Focus carries with it an extra air of bitterness, and it's very disappointing to see. Focus Home Interactive has been, in my opinion, a real positive force in the more mainstream game sphere. The games they put out might be a little janky, might be a little less pretty looking than a lot of the big name titles, but they're substantial, you get bang for your buck, they're always interesting even if they're not always great, and they occupy that mid-tier niche of games that used to be full of all sorts of interesting titles, but dried up significantly recently as publishers increasingly adopted an all-or-nothing approach to making money. As major publishers abandoned that idea of the mid-tier game, a game that isn't a massive mega-budget AAA experience but is not a small indie game either, Focus Home Interactive's output really stepped up and stood out. And Focus Home Interactive owes that output to studios like Frogwares, like Spiders, like Cyanide Studio. Make no mistake, Focus's identity is intrinsically tied to these developers. When I see these studios, I think of Focus Home Interactive. And when I see Focus Home Interactive, I think of these studios. Very specifically, I think of Cyanide, I think of Spiders, I think of Frogwares. And to emphasize, I'm talking about studio names, I'm not sitting here just randomly thinking about Cyanide and Spiders. Focus Home Interactive really should be fostering very good relationships with these studios. And it really pains me to see this bitter tussle brewing between Focus Home Interactive and Frogwares. Policy notwithstanding, Focus needs to get along with these developers because these developers are why Focus Home Interactive has been enjoying such a positive reputation. Torpedoing the goodwill you may have built with your studios is just shitty, especially when Focus is just delisting games without Frogwares having any knowledge or say in the matter. The distribution agreement is over. Frogwares owns its own IP. Focus's behaviour is not based on prior behaviour, this policy is a new one of theirs. It's a thoroughly disappointing policy, and the way Focus has been enforcing it in this particular case is shameful. It would at least be one thing if this was a long-standing policy, if this was the way Focus always did business. It would still be shitty, but at least the developers would know what they were getting into. But the fact that this is new, the fact that Frogwares has never had this problem before, that's what makes this especially untenable. This is just disappointing to see. Focus Home Interactive has been putting out some belters, and I was planning a video where I would discuss those belters and what a positive force in the market Focus's output has been, but now this is, I mean, can I not like one thing and just have it stay not shit? I sincerely hope Focus reverses this decision. I sincerely hope Focus lets Frogwares sell the game it has a right to sell by all accounts. And I hope Focus doesn't tank its faith and goodwill with its developers, because the developers are the ones making the games that I like to buy and play from Focus Home Interactive. What a shame otherwise. What a pissing shame.